It's like it kicked it out and started it again. So let's see.
So this is live online.
Really?
Hmm.
Okay, I don't see it. Well, we're almost there. Woo! Let's see here. I don't know why it's moving slow on my side. Okay, if you're there, bear with us. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're going to be started in just two shakes. Okay. There. Oh, let's see here. Okay. All right. We are live. Okay. It just took a minute to show up on my side. You always tell me I have too many windows open, too many tabs open. I don't know if that's what it is or what. But we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. I just want to make sure that we're running on all the pages that we're supposed to be running on, and then we will dive into this conversation. Sunita, I'm so glad that you are with me. I'm so excited that we get to do this. I think it's awesome. And I think what God is doing with you and the information you're getting is also awesome. So, all right, it looks like we are ready. Looks like we're on all the places we're supposed to be. So, I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of Wealth Matters for Financial Dominion. This particular episode is a real treat for me because it's our teen edition. And I have with me today my daughter, Sunita Reeves. She is an artist and a budding investor, and we're just going to have a conversation with her and ask her some of the things that are on her mind. And we want to get the team perspective on money matters and wealth matters. And so she and I are going to have a conversation and invite you all to join us. If you have questions, please be sure to post those in the comment area so that we can also address your questions. But I'm going to ask Anita some questions, and then she's going to ask some questions because I wanted to do this episode and hear what questions were on her mind. And I'm sure that there are questions on the minds of other teenagers, or maybe not. Maybe they're not thinking about this at all. But I think it's important to bring our young people into this conversation about wealth matters. So, Sunita, welcome to the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Amen. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and then I know you have some questions that you want to ask as well.
Hmm.
So, um, my first question is about a book that I bought for you years ago. I think it's been 2 years now. Has it been 2 years?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The book is called The Wealthy Barber. And at the time, you were not too interested in it. But talk to me about what has changed now, because I see more interest in you as it relates to money matters and wealth matters. So what's changed since then, and why do you have more interest now?
Back when I first bought it, it was financial matters were a completely different world to me. It was a very scary thing. I didn't want to touch it or mess with it or mess it up. So I just left it alone. But now, since we've been going into um, financial matters and I know a little bit more about it, it's less scary. So since I understand it a little bit more, it's easier to get into it and to understand.
Okay, okay, good. I'm glad to hear that because a lot of times people think that investing and saving and managing your money has to be complicated, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming. But I think that you have found thus far
Hmm.
that it doesn't have to be complicated. There are things that we have to learn. We have to educate ourselves, but it's not rocket science. It's not beyond our capacity to understand and to absorb. And it's certainly not beyond your capacity to understand and absorb. And
Hmm.
I'm glad to hear that you're feeling more comfortable with it. I think that's a really, really good thing and a step in the right direction. And I think that anybody that's watching that's a parent, that we have to start having these conversations with our teenagers, with our young people early, so that they do feel equipped. I didn't have anybody telling me this information at your age, Sanita, talking to me about Roth IRAs and investing in index funds and all that. Nobody was telling me that at your age. And so I think that as parents, it behooves us to start having these conversations early and figuring out what we can do for our young people, even before they are 18, to set them up for financial success. So talk to me from a teen perspective then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what are the things that you think young people should know about money in general? What are the things you think young people need to be aware of?
Just the basics of savings and financial planning. I think at the very least, if they know how to save and manage their money well, then that would be a big step in the general direction. Since most teenagers, they're not really thinking about how to manage their money, since they are living with their parents and most of their needs are cared for by their parents. So when it comes to spending money, maybe they get an allowance or not, depends on the teenager. But since there's nothing that they really have to pay for if they don't have a job, then it's not something that they think about. So I think if
Mhm.
they just know the basics of saving, and financial planning, then I think that would be a big help.
Yeah, and I think that's really good, Sanina. So out of sight, out of mind. If you're a teenager, you don't have to pay for anything, you don't um, earn an allowance or anything like that, then you may not have any need to worry about money, except that when your parents tell you turn those lights off, money doesn't grow on trees. You hear
Mhm.
those things, but you don't have any experience with it. So talk to me about how, opening the checking account for you, your
Mhm.
grandfather sending you money to save,
Mhm.
how, and then, your experience now with the Roth IRA, the
Mhm.
custodial Roth that you have. Talk to me about how those things have impacted you. I mean, have they changed your mindset? Have they built your confidence? How have those things impacted you now having something to work with?
I find that it's a lot easier than I thought it would be. They have a lot of fancy names to it, but the concepts behind them are really simple and easy to grasp. I just think that it's a matter of educating and letting people know what this and this means and what that says, and letting them know that just because it has a big name on it or it sounds complicated, it's really not. It's really easy to do.
Hmm.
Um, and even if you just get someone to help you with it, it's something really simple.
Okay, so give me an example of something that had a name but was really easy to do. Maybe had a name you weren't familiar with, but you found out it was really something simple.
Um, like the big savings accounts, the Roth IRAs, the CDs, and stuff like the 401k, the
Hmm.
W-2. Like they all sound like really weird and complicated, but it's actually pretty easy to grasp and understand.
Okay, wonderful. So I think one of the things that you and I talked about was even at a young age, understanding that you don't have to spend everything you earn. So
Mm.
one of the things you said to me before we, came on the show was, I have learned that I just need to spend less and save more. And I think that that may sound simple,
Mm-hmm.
but it is actually the key to growing well for yourself. You don't have to spend everything you earn. If you spend everything you earn, you're never going to be able to put money aside to save and invest. And I'm so glad that that is something that has stuck with you, and that you brought up. I didn't tell you to say that. That's something you brought up. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that, like you said, if teenagers don't have any experience or anything to work with, or they're not responsible for money at all, then yeah, it's easy to spend somebody else's money. And I laughed one time after we opened your checking account.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me for money. And I'm like, you got money in your checking account. Why you still want to spend my money? So it's easier. Yeah, it's easier to spend somebody else's money, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't get to see that reality until you're working with something
Mm-hmm.
that you can call your own. And so I think that that concept of spending less than what you earn, it really hits home when it's your money on the line.
Yeah.
It's all right when it's mama's money on the line. Let's spend, let's spend, let's spend. But when it's your money and you go into your account and you see the balance,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to see that balance go down,
Mm-hmm.
when it's your account. And so I think that that is a excellent, excellent thing, Sanita. So if you remember, I made you watch one of the episodes,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we were talking about the fact that if you just save consistently, that is one of the surefire ways that you can make yourself a millionaire. And I think you watched that episode. It was with Jeremy,
Mm-hmm.
and I also showed you the calculator,
Mm-hmm.
the future value calculator. That if you save for X amount of years, this is how much money will accrue. And we saw the difference in just 10 years. So the difference in 10 years was you'd end up with almost 10 million, 9.9 million versus, so 40 years was what, 9.9 million, saving for 40 years was 9.9, saving for 30 years was 3.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference was almost $6 million of just 10 years of saving. What does that do for you as a 17-year-old? I mean, how does that information impact you? Because I wish I had the I wish I had that information at your age. I think it would have done some things for me. But I want to hear what does having that information do for you? Does
Um, it really encourages me to save more and save consistently because it shows that my efforts in saving will pay off a large amount in due time if I keep doing it well. Yeah, so it just motivates me to manage my money well, manage it correctly. You know?
Yeah, it is motivating. When I saw it, I was like, oh, I wasted so much time, But the thing is, for you and for other young people that'll watch this and parents that are watching, the earlier we get our kids investing, our children investing, the better it will be for them. So early is better, even if they just start with $50.
Mm-hmm.
The earlier they start, the more that interest will work for them, and the better they will be positioned to be millionaires before they reach the age of retirement. So one of the things we did with Sunita was to show her that if you invest for 30 years, let's just say you invest 30 years and you invest the maximum that you can invest in your Roth, which right now is 6,000. The maximum you can invest per year in the Roth IRA is 6,000. And you invest the maximum in a traditional IRA. Let's just say you invest 13,000 a year. If she does that for just working 30 years, she could retire at age 57 as a multimillionaire. And so, if we show our children the numbers and help them to understand that the numbers are in their favor, the younger they are, I believe that it will motivate them, as Sunita just shared, that she's motivated. I believe it will motivate them to start saving early and to save consistently. Now, Sunita, there were some questions that you had that you wanted to ask. I've asked my questions of you. So you had some questions that you wanted to ask. What are some things that are on your mind?
I wanted to ask about taxes, where they come from, because you hear a lot, like when adults are talking about money, you hear like about taxes. So I was wondering, like, where do taxes come from? What sort of things are taxed?
Hmm.
Stuff like that.
Okay. So taxes come from the government. The federal government, both federal and local state governments fund their operations through taxes, through taxing their constituents. So I think in 2019, the federal government made 3.5 trillion or something from taxes. And the majority of the money that the federal government makes is from income and payroll taxes. So what that means is that for the benefit of living in this beautiful country we live in, the government says you're going to pay taxes. And those taxes come out of our income. If we work for an employer, they come out of in payroll taxes. If we're self-employed, they come out of self-employment taxes. So anytime you get a paycheck, which you're about to experience, if you get a paycheck, you'll see that there are payroll taxes that come out. They're called FICA or Social Security and payroll taxes. Payroll taxes cover those things, FICA. And then there's income taxes that you pay to the federal government and to the state government. So all of those things will come out of your paycheck. And if you have an employer that does 401k matching or allows you to contribute to retirement savings, that will come out of your paycheck as well.
Just to clarify for any younger viewers, what is a 401k?
So 401k is a retirement savings instrument. It's a way to save for your retirement. And typically, if you work for an employer that does 401k and matching, what that means is that whatever you contribute out of your paycheck, your employer will match that and add to what you're contributing to your retirement savings. So those things come out of your paycheck. So that's all of those things will come out of your paycheck. So federal taxes, state taxes, and taxes are fees, levies placed on the government's constituents to help to fund the operations of the federal government and the state government. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, and so do you want to talk a little bit more about the paycheck? What comes out of the paycheck? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing to note about when things come out of the paycheck. So for example, with the 401k, if you take money out of your paycheck to contribute to your retirement account, that's what's called pre-tax dollars. And it's pre-tax because it is reducing your paycheck. And your paycheck is what you pay taxes on. So if you contribute to your retirement and tell your employer, take that much out of my paycheck for my retirement, then that reduces your paycheck, what they actually pay you, right? Which means you don't pay taxes on the amount that they took out.
I see.
For your retirement. You pay taxes on what's left over. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, and that's why traditional IRAs are typically pre-tax.
Gotcha.
Right? Because they reduce your income, which in turn reduces your tax benefit, tax obligation to the government.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. But that's where taxes come from. They come from Uncle Sam. They come from the government. That's your that's your obligation for living in this country is to pay taxes. Okay. You had another question.
Yes, we talked about savings accounts. And while we're opening the Roth IRA earlier, there is something about taxable savings accounts. What kind of savings accounts are taxable? Which ones aren't?
Okay. So there are a number of accounts that are either tax-free or they offer you significant tax benefits. And the Roth IRA is one of them. So the Roth IRA is typically not pre-tax. It doesn't come out of your paycheck. The Roth IRA is typically after tax, meaning you're putting your own dollars in from your earnings, your net earnings after everything else is taken out. But it's significant in terms of your tax benefit because whatever you put into that Roth IRA is tax-free. You don't pay taxes on it. And if you let it stay there until you're 59 and a half years old, even when you take the money out of the Roth, you are not charged a penalty. You don't pay taxes on it when you take it out. And so a Roth IRA is a retirement savings instrument that is tax-free and has great tax benefits. Now, the traditional IRA, you don't pay taxes as the money accrues, but you do pay a tax when you take that money out. Let's say you have a traditional IRA and you wait till you're 59 and you take the money out. You will pay taxes on it when you take the money out.
I
On the
see.
Roth, you don't pay taxes on it when you take the money out. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, you were still with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you want the Roth IRA has great tax benefits.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional IRA has tax benefits as the money accrues, but you pay taxes on it when you take the money out. Some
Mm-hmm.
other accounts that have great tax benefits are something called a 529 college savings plan, and that is where you can put money aside to pay for your college education tax free.
Okay.
And then a health savings account. Now, these next two will apply, Sanita, more when you get what I call your real job after college, right? They'll apply more then. But another kind of account that has great tax benefits is a health savings account
Mm-hmm.
and a flexible spending account. And
Mm-hmm.
these typically, if your employer offers these, you want to take advantage of them.
Okay.
That's one thing I didn't do when I was working in corporate America. I didn't take advantage of the HSA. But those accounts are places that you can put money tax free.
I see.
Yeah, and you can take the money out tax free. That's
Gotcha.
that's what's great about it. You don't pay any taxes on it as it accrues or when you take the money out. Now the flexible spending is a little bit different because there may be a limit
Mm.
on what you can allow to sit there year to year. Like you may have to pull the money out each year. All of it may not
Us.
roll over. But that will apply more so when you get to your quote unquote real job, as I said, and you'll talk to your human resources department about what the conditions are on the health savings account that they offer and the flexible spending account that they offer. And I would encourage anybody whose employer offers a health savings account or a flexible spending account to use it. Because even with the health saving account, you can put money there and you can still let that money accrue tax free, even if you don't use it for medical expense. So those are two great savings accounts to have.
Gotcha.
And so if you're starting out, you're going to have your part-time job, blah, 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 and you're going to go to college and eventually you're going to get your quote unquote real job. The kinds of savings accounts you should have, I think you should start with a couple of different kinds of savings account. One is just a regular savings account.
Mm.
So you have a checking account and just open a regular savings account. And that money is like rainy day money. And you should set that up just on automatic every month. Just move a little bit into your regular savings account. And then as you build up more income, you want to have a money market account because, and I said as you build up income, because a money market savings account typically has a higher minimum balance requirement.
Mm.
I think you remember if we talked about that.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't it
So
like
you got your regular
6?
savings. Regular savings typically doesn't have like a minimum balance requirement. You can open it with $25, $50, right?
Mm.
But a money market savings account typically has a higher minimum balance requirement. So you
Mm.
may need 2,000 to open it, or you may need, whatever. It's just going to have a higher minimum balance requirement. Now it used to be that a money market account guaranteed you a higher interest rate on your money. That's
Mm.
not always the case now. So you have to check and make sure that you're getting a better interest rate accruing on the money that you save in that money market account because you're putting a higher amount in. So that's where you want to move to the money market when you've got some more money saved up. And the benefit should be a higher interest rate.
Gotcha. So in a regular savings account, is there a limit to how much you can put in there?
There isn't a limit. There isn't a limit, but you typically don't get as high of an interest rate on a regular savings account, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make sense to put all your money there when you could get a higher interest rate once you start to have a higher amount of savings,
Gotcha.
right? Because you'll get interest accruing at a higher rate on more money.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's why it makes sense to then move some of your money into that money market account. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you could put money in a savings account, it just won't accrue as much interest.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's something called a certificate of deposit. And what a certificate of deposit means is that you are putting that money in that savings account and you're saying, I'm not going to touch this money for 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. And in exchange for that, the bank gives you a higher interest rate. So your money sits there, but it's accruing more interest
How
because
much
you
higher interest are we talking about here? Like,
it's slightly higher. I mean, we're not talking about grand sweeping numbers,
mhm.
but it could be the difference of 1% or 2%. And if you think about that, if you've got, $10,000 in a money market account, it's a good chunk of money. I mean, it's not gonna make you a millionaire, but it's still your money. It's not the bank's money, it's your money. And so you should get the maximum amount of interest possible on it, right? The bank shouldn't be profiting from your money, from the interest on your money. You should be profiting from the interest on your money. And so, but if we don't know these things, that's exactly what happens. The bank profits on the interest that our money accrues, and we don't. So that's why it's important to understand these different savings instruments so that you can navigate and maximize the amount of interest that you get back on your money. Now, there used to be something, they used to have instruments where, like, they used to have certificates of deposit CDs where you could contribute to them every month, right? And then after, let's say, 12 months, no penalty, you can take your money out. That's a great way to save for Christmas, right? So that Christmas doesn't become an expense that you go into debt for. You save for it all year long. You put that money in a CD and you don't touch it, right? And then when it matures, you take the money out and you go shop for Christmas. That's a great way to save for Christmas. All right. And then, of course, we already talked about the retirement savings accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any other questions about savings accounts? I feel like I'm talking a lot.
Well, I mean, you know more than I do, so.
But I want to make sure I'm answering your question.
Yes. Um, is there a certain number of savings account you should have, a minimum number, or is it just like up to you to
I
know
think
it?
you should start with a certain types of savings.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, that rainy day, just regular old savings account, right? You should start with that. Build your savings up and then move that greater amount into a money market. If you know that you want to, for example, plan for an expense every year, if you want to plan for a vacation every year, a CD is a great way to do that. A 12-month CD is a great way to do that and get more interest on that money and then take the money out when it matures on a particular date and then use that for your vacation, right? I think you should have those three things and build up progressively to each one. Like you've got to build up to have enough money for the money market to make sense. And then you can do the CD if you want to plan for something every year and not have it cause you to go into debt or overspending. You can use a CD to do that. And then, of course, the retirement savings accounts. So those things I think are things that you should look at. Um, you know, doing.
So it's not about how many, but the type of savings accounts you have.
There you go.
All
That's
right.
right.
Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And that that regular old savings account can be for short-term things,
Mm-hmm.
that so you have an emergency fund, like that's your rainy day emergency. Your regular savings account, your money market is more long-term, right, because it's a higher amount. Your certificate of deposit, that is for your annual planning, or you could use it that way for your annual planning or 2-year planning, to plan like for a vacation or Christmas or something like that. And then your retirement accounts, they're long-term. You're in those for the long haul. So it's slow and steady. You want to be consistent with those. Every month, you want to be consistent with those, okay? Because that's what you're going to live off of. If you say, I want to retire at 45, that's what you're going to be living off of. So you always want to be consistent with those.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
I see.
Anything else?
Um, oh, yes, I wanted to talk about some topics that I read from the Wealthy Barber book that she gave me. There
Okay.
were some ideas and concepts that I thought would be really helpful. Um, the first one would be the 10% plan.
Okay.
After ties, you take 10% and put it in your savings. Every month or whenever you get your paycheck, to just automatically put it in there. Um, I thought that would be really helpful for, especially for teenagers, since you know if you do automatically, they don't have to think about it. They don't have to be like, oh, I have to put this money in my savings account now. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I thought that would be something really helpful to help them, to help us save consistently. You know.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and
Um,
I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad that you said, after ties, because for me, I've been in that place where it is a temptation not to pay your tithes because you got to pay bills and you got to do this and that. And you look at it, that money and like, man, I could really use that 10% right now. But yes, so tithing is first, your first 10%. Sanita, that's exactly right. And then in the Wealthy Barber, it talks about that 10%. Now they use the terminology pay yourself first, but what it really is making sure that you're building for the future, right? It's not a selfish thing. It's making sure that you're building for the future. So you want to take that 10% and put it in your rainy day, put it in your money market, wherever, put it in your retirement savings, whatever you need to do. But it has been proven that most millionaires have a habit of investing, putting money aside to save it and invest it. And that's what is I think is important takeaway there is that habit, building that habit of at least taking 10% and investing it or saving it. As you said in the beginning, not, you don't have to spend everything you earn. Take that 10% and then save it and invest it. And I think that's a great point that you bring up. And I'm glad that stood out for you from the book. What else stood out for you from the book?
Mutual funds. They talked about that. Because before I read it, I thought the only way to invest, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
was in stock because that's the only thing I'd heard of before. So
Okay.
mutual funds was a new concept and idea to me.
Mm-hmm.
I got the gist of it, but it's still kind of fuzzy for me. Could you explain that some more?
I'm going to try. So, mutual fund means that you and a pool of other people all put your money into this mutual investment that is managed by a money manager. So, a money manager takes, money from thousands of people, puts it in a pool, and determines how to allocate all that money to try to give all of those people capital gains or dividends or money, income from their investment. So a person is managing that mutual fund and they may allocate that money to a portion of a market, to a specific industry or sector. They may invest that money in different kinds of ways. And so that's basically what a mutual fund does is that it pools your resources together with thousands of other people with other resources so that there's more money being allocated and hopefully the idea or the theory was that that brings you a greater return. That has not always been proven to be true, but one of the advantages of mutual funds is that you don't need a lot of money to start. So it's a lot of people saw it as an easy way to start investing with a limited investment. They didn't have to spend a lot of money to get started. But there are other. It's one way. There are other ways of investing. We've talked about some people really love index funds. And Warren Buffett, we shared that. We talked about that, how Warren Buffett told, all these money managers, okay, you take your money and invest it how you want to. I'm going to take my money, put it in an index fund. And basically the index funds beat all those money managers. So, there are different ways to do it, but the mutual fund basically is pooling resources together, and then a money manager then determines how to allocate and invest those resources in an attempt to give the investors capital gains and dividends and income back.
See. You mentioned index funds. What are those?
So an index fund is where, just like you would invest your money into a mutual fund, an index fund is an instrument that basically says, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to invest your money into the entire market. So instead of investing in one sector or in the way that one money manager wants to allocate it, you're investing in the entire market. So if one company does bad, you've got your investment spread across the entire market, and that should mitigate some of your risk. And it just tracks the market. So really invest in the market. So as the market goes, so does your investment go.
I see. Um, so for actually getting the money into these investment opportunities, how would you go about that? Would you like go to the bank, or is there a company you need to go to?
Sure. So I like Fidelity,
Mhm.
and Fidelity is where you and I went to open your Roth.
Mhm.
I like Fidelity because they do a lot of education. And I like that they have zero fee funds. So, for example, when when Jeremy and I went through funding your Roth, um, we we chose a couple of different zero fee index funds. And it really doesn't make sense that people are charged all these exorbitant fees to invest their money. And that's one reason why I like Fidelity. Now, the top three are probably Fidelity, Vanguard, and Schwab. So you can go to any of those websites and open uh, the various and different kinds of accounts that you want to open. You just go to their website and you say, I want to open an index. I want to open a Roth, or I want to open a traditional IRA. And then you can open the account right on the website, and then it will ask you, how do you want to fund this? And then you can attach your bank account to it and transfer money in, and then tell it how you want to invest, like what funds you want to invest in, or so on and so forth.
I see. Got
And I
you.
see your brother's back there having fun. So basically you don't have to go through your bank. You
Mhm.
can go right to these big houses, these big investment houses, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard. You don't have to go through your bank. If you go through your bank, I think you should really do your due diligence, do your research,
Mhm.
and make sure they aren't charging exorbitant fees. And that's the thing I like about Fidelity, is that they don't charge all these big fees.
Got you.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Another topic that I wanted to go over from the book was life insurance.
Okay.
Um, I got a little bit of the concept, but I didn't fully understand it. What
Okay.
I understood from it was that when you're charging life insurance, you have to put it on the person that has people depending on them.
Mm-hmm.
But can you explain a little bit more of that, please?
Sure. Let me talk to your brothers. They should go. Yes. Okay. So with life insurance, when you say that you should insure the person that people are dependent on, that is exactly right. So let's say, for example, right now, it would not make a whole lot of sense for you to open a life insurance policy. But once you get older, you get married, you start having children, then it makes more sense for you to have a life insurance policy, because one of the primary reasons that people take out life insurance is because there is a death benefit with the life insurance. And that means that in the event that you pass away, you designate who you want to leave the money from the policy to. So let's say you're married and you have children, and you say, in your life insurance, you designate that you want to leave 50% to your spouse, and then the other 50% to your children. You can do it that way, just for example. So that's one of the primary reasons that people take life insurance, because they don't want to leave a burden on their family members to pay for funeral expenses, to pay for a casket, to pay for the funeral, to pay for all of the things that you have to pay for even to bury a loved one is expensive. It's not cheap. A funeral is not cheap. And so that's, part of the benefit of having a life insurance policy is what people call the quote unquote death benefit,
Gotcha.
right? That whatever money is there on the policy will be paid out to the people that you decide should be the beneficiaries. They're called beneficiaries, the people that the money goes to.
Mhm.
Now, another reason that people do or take out a life insurance policy is that it's another way to save, tax deferred. So there's different types of insurance policies. There's term life, which means that you pay the insurance premium for a set amount of years. So a term could be 20 years.
Mhm.
So you pay it for 20 years. Then there's whole life. Whole life, you pay the premium, for longer amount of time. But one of the things that you can do with whole life is that you can save into the policy. Now, some people say, well, it doesn't make sense to save into the policy. You're not getting a whole lot of return on it. Okay, well, it may not be for everybody, but one of the benefits, for example, is that you could save into a whole life insurance without that money being deemed as part of your income. So you could save, for example, in a whole life policy for your child's college education without that money being counted against you as income when their financial aid is determined. So a lot of people don't know that. So in essence, it's a way to save and hide that money, hide that money so it doesn't become part of your income, right? Which when your child goes to college, it won't count against them.
I see.
Yeah. So there's different reasons that, people do the life insurance. And there are different types of life insurance. There's term life, there's whole life, there's universal life. Different kinds of policies will allow you to do different kinds of things with the money that you put in the policy. And some of them, many of them will allow you to do it tax free. And that's why as you grow and you start saving more and you've got a good portfolio, you want to make sure that life insurance is also part of your portfolio. Okay. You asked some great questions, Tanita.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Is there anything else? Or was that all?
No, that was all.
Well, I think it's been great. I'm so glad that you and I were able to have this conversation. And I hope that you will continue to be empowered. That's one of my goals, is to empower you financially and give you the information that I didn't have, and to see you go higher and go higher. And for all of the parents that are watching, I want to see you do the same for your children as well. And I think we should have more teen editions. We should invite some more teenagers on and talk about some of these things. And I think it will really help. And a lot of times, as you said, Sunita, you made an excellent point that when you don't have to pay for anything, you're not handling money at all. Some of these things are nowhere in your mind. But, you're 17, getting ready to go into your last year of high school. You need to be equipped with these things because, when you get to college, you need to have a good financial head on your shoulders and a good financial mindset. A lot of kids get in trouble in college and get all kinds of credit cards that they cannot pay for. And it ends up getting them into debt. But to avoid that, not to do that. And I think that we need to have some more conversations with some more young people and see what's on their mind as well. So Sunita, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. It's been a pleasure. And to all of you that are watching, thank you for joining us on today. And we'll be back next Wednesday. Deepo Adesina is with us. He is the CEO of Agro Angels, and he'll be back with us next week. I want to encourage you to support the podcast so that we can continue to bring you great content and also to spread financial literacy, not just to us old folks, but to the young people as well. You can support the podcast on Cash App at $PH Publishing, on Venmo. Venmo is at Purpose House. And then, of course, on our website, you can support. You can find all the ways that you can support. All right. Thank you, Sunita. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we will see you next Wednesday. God bless everybody.